Hi guys, I'm Adrian, and I love film. Today's show, Rescue Me. Before watching, I assume you've watched the show in its entirety, so spoilers ahead. Rescue Me, in my opinion, is simply a hidden gem. You can ask anyone under the age of 30, chances are they haven't seen Rescue Me. Rescue Me is a dark dramedy about post 9/11 firefighters and how they use dark humor to cope, along with the situations that scale from insanely serious to seriously insane. We see how this day has affected these men, their families, and their careers. We see the respect entitled from these firefighters and how things go when respect isn't given. Leary sets the show at a time when unadulterated masculinity has started to be strongly challenged, and the media began to gain a strong presence in our everyday influences. One bad media report could be the end of the firehouse. This can bring up season two when we had a woman present on the team, Laura. Of course, after being introduced to the team in season one, we can see how having a woman here would be a problem. The sheer masculinity that surrounds the firehouse just doesn't have room for a woman. We eventually see her file a complaint, and the guys have to go to a class where we get a classic Tommy Gavin monologue.
Files a lawsuit against the FDNY, or God help us, there's another disgruntled female firefighter who thinks she has a case. The FDNY can say, no, they can't be prejudiced. They took this horseshit sensitivity training. Let me tell you something. Next time I run into a burning building and refuse to bring out anybody who's not the same color as me, that's when you can bring my angry, sober, pink Irish ass back down here. Got it? Going outside for a smoke.
She ends up in a relationship with one of the other squad mates, and things go south from there. The ball busting makes these firefighters into brothers. The fact that a man's sensitivities are irrelevant here make for 100% open and honest judgment between the crew. We see men that must trust one another with each other's lives. We even get a scene later in the show where Garrity is having more PP problems and all the boys take a look to evaluate. These men have unspeakable and unexplainable bonds and complexities, so I do my best to put those into words. I think the best way to go about this analysis is to, of course, analyze our characters. We'll start with Chief Jerry. Chief Jerry was at that point in his marriage where age was a factor and they were driving each other crazy. They still loved each other very much, though, but the insanity didn't help when his wife developed Alzheimer's. He then, of course, had to take care of his wife, and that came with its complications. We also see Jerry struggle with his traditional beliefs with his gay son. One of his biggest acts is him going to his son's wedding. We see him truly accept his son and love him for who he is, just to see Jerry cry and hate his situation. Going back to his wife with Alzheimer's, once she forgets who Jerry is, he decides to have relations with the woman he met at the nursing home. This is where Jerry gets a run for his money. This leads up to him having a heart attack, where the woman legit left this man because she was undocumented. Crazy stuff. Jerry then pretty much loses his job, does everything he can to get it back, even gets back in shape. And when he realizes that the rest of his days will be spent playing golf with no wife and an only son that he doesn't accept, he takes his own life. Through this, we get to see how much being a fireman really means to these men. Most of these men on the team live and breathe and bleed 52 truck. Honestly, deep down, some of them got nothing else to live for. Now let's focus on Mike. Mike has had a struggle. He consistently goes through different scenarios to find himself and also continuously struggles with sexuality. And with the bare masculinity that surrounds the firehouse, it only makes things more difficult for him. One situation to mention was in season one when Mike began a monogamous situation with a couple. This eventually led to Mike moving in with a guy, only to nearly get raped in a drunken rage. Another scenario we see is when Mike tries to see a woman with bulimia. Here we see Mike truly let his guard down and accept someone for who they are. We see what it means not to care about the physical and to be truly emotionally invested. Unfortunately, we see this girl cheat on Mike, something he never thought she would do, or rather, she left him for another guy. We even see Mike have relations and admit to having relations with men.
Lou, I married a hooker. He married a hooker. I married a Russian mail-order bride.
I married Maggie.
Which I'm banking on makes the hooker and the mail-order bride seem a little sensible.
I'm marrying Colleen.
She's gonna make marrying Maggie look like a day at the beach. No offense, Tommy.
None taken.
Yeah, well, I guess I could be considered a deadbeat dad.
And a conspiracy freak. My gayness.
The whole nun thing.
Lesbo girlfriend.
Extreme gayness. You wanna know what's sad? Him being gay is the least of our public relations problem. Yeah, unless they find out that I glue a guy down at headquarters once. Yeah, unless they find out that he blew a guy down at headquarters. Mike, you blew a guy from headquarters or you blew a guy at headquarters? Both.
Thank you, God in heaven, for this wonderful gift.
Wait a second. What guy?
I don't remember his name, dude.
How could you not know his name?
We were drinking.
Drinking at headquarters?
No. First at a Christmas party that was at a place.
Later in the show, he realizes he might not be gay, but of course, he doesn't live down sleeping with the guy for the rest of the series. All in all, we see Mike have issues with his sexuality through most of the show. We see Mike get constantly emotionally traumatized in ways that will screw up anyone. What makes it rescue me, though, is that Mike is a dumbass, and it unfortunately makes his whole journey into a ball busting extravaganza, pun intended. Not trying to analyze Mike is simply impossible without mentioning Sean. White Sean, that is. Sean is also a grade A idiot, but maybe a bit smarter than Mike. These guys are two peas in a pod, where one doesn't know where to put his pee pee, and the other puts it in all the wrong places. We honestly can understand how Garrity is always having pee pee problems. One time it was orange, one time it was numb. I even think he may have had to go to the hospital once.
Hey, kiddo.
Hey,
What a long face.
I had a little bit of an issue this morning.
Tell me about it.
I don't know, it's kind of private.
You got limp dick?
No.
Sean, come on. After all these years of telling each other everything, now you're gonna pull the private card? It's either your dick or you're queer.
It's my dick.
Besides Sean's pee-pee problems, we see him struggle to fit in and find his place. Garrity even tried to force himself into binge drinking so he could have someone to talk to at the Garrity family support group. And we have to talk about his marriage with Tommy's sister. She was pretty much insane, and Garrity definitely suffered for it. He had to deal with another alcoholic for a wife, and not to mention the mundane arguments they would get into. We even see Garrity go into a depression after the divorce. All in all, Sean is another kind hearted idiot. Luckily, he found him one at the end of the show. She was a farter, but they figured out how to make it work. This kid has gone through a lot of issues with his junk, and the firehouse may have only been the beginning. Speaking of relationship with Tommy's relatives, let's talk about Black Sean. Black Sean came later in the series with some demands. They're recruiting him for the Firehouse basketball team. His most memorable demand was to be called Sean, aka Black Sean. He also got to skip all the probie work. The guys eventually get acquainted with having a black guy in the squad, and later on, we see Black Sean develop feelings for Colleen, Tommy's daughter. Of course, at first, the entire squad tells him no, Tommy's gonna kill you, obviously. But that doesn't stop Black Sean. He continues to actively pursue Colleen, eventually moving in together and getting married by the end of the show. Of course, the relationship has its struggles and its fair share of ball busting.
Right here, I'll give you what you want. Touch my back. Ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh. I'll give you. Oh, shit! What's going on? Hey! Tommy, what are you doing? Are you crazy? You don't turn the goddamn hose on a black man.
Yeah?
Yeah. Did you see the footage from Birmingham?
See the footage? I was there, okay?
Okay. No. Tommy, stop.
Now,
What are you doing?
did you call my daughter a whore?
No, I didn't call her a whore.
So my daughter's a liar.
No. I said she did some whorish things.
Oh. Worst thing.
And just for a moment, can we talk about how Franco did boxing for like a whole season but got his ass kicked by Black Sean? Anyway, we have yet another alcoholic in the Gavin family. We see Sean have to deal with Colleen's drinking, and that wasn't easy for anyone. It came down to Tommy damn near drowning Colleen in a pool of alcohol to get her to stop drinking. I think it's fair to say that Black Sean got a happy end. Then there's Rivera, Franco Rivera, the well proclaimed firehouse pussy popper. Since the beginning of the show, we see Franco smooth talk his way into lots of pants. We see this man end up with a long lost kid daughter, and one can see how this can affect a very sexual lifestyle. Now, having this child, we see Franco struggle to take responsibility for her, and I suppose he ultimately does or doesn't. It's really up to the audience. We see Franco finally take in his daughter Keela and ends up getting injured in the field. He is then given some pills for his pain, which he eventually abuses, even sleeping with a woman for the pills. This turns sour when Keela gets a hold of the pills. We see Franco find love, and you gotta love Richie.
So how's your Tourette's thing going, Richie? I haven't heard you,
Nigger.
There it is. What is that, the Conquest Treth Felon?
I reached level 60. I need to find a new game now.
Yeah, but wait a second, that's not possible, Rich. That's the Conquest Treth Felon, right? It's the most intricate, difficult...
I kicked its ass.
It took Garrity 8 months to reach level 5. You just beat the whole game in...
4 hours, 9 minutes, nigger.
And once he tried to marry her and things go sideways, it sends Franco down a slippery slope. He feels that every time he tried to take responsibility, it doesn't work out. Later in the show, Franco meets a wealthy woman who he even hands over Keela to. Whether this was the right decision, no one knows. Franco also did boxing for a while and eventually became lieutenant by the end of the show. That brings us to Lieutenant Kenny Shea, or Lou. Lou was always our king of one-liners and a damn good cook, which made things at the firehouse better. He always tried to guide his men with wisdom and with his life. Well, for the most part. Let's start with Lou's failed marriage. Lou was married for the first part of the show, and you can see the emotional distance between them. I also do not believe they were intimate. She also didn't help with coping with 9/11. Lou eventually finds an outlet for his emotions through poetry, but he's afraid to share it because of how vulnerable he lets himself be in poetry. So, of course, he shares it with the one person he should be able to, his wife. She completely denounces his poems, and this is heavy on Lou. They eventually got a divorce, and Lou fell into one of his trademark dirty depressions. Another huge factor in Lou was Candy. Candy was this gorgeous woman that Lou fell in love with. The problem is, she was an escort. This causes issues, but Lou tries to see through it and tries to be with her. That is, until she took all his money and ran away. Cue the Lou depression. Lou then meets a nun who is a virgin. She is no longer. The problem is she legitimately had too much sexual energy for Lou. So one day Lou came home and she was in bed with one of his drinking buddies. I want to say this is when Lou started eating himself to death. Then later in the show, just when Lou got back on his feet, Candy returns, seemingly washed up and wishing for that good Lou loving. Obviously, Lou denounces her, but not forever. They eventually end up back together, and we see Lou actually happy again until he calls the cops on Candy and turns her in. The long game at its finest. But yes, unfortunately, it came down to Lou eating healthier to live longer or eating himself to death and die a fireman. He chose the latter. This is why Franco was hurt, why Damien was hurt, and why Keela was hurt. Lou, being self destructive, caused so much misfortune. Poor Damien. Although this was the case, Lou did a great thing before he died, and that was give everyone Tommy's death letter so they wouldn't hate him for the rest of his days. Best thing that ever happened to Tommy was Lou. So, I guess it's time. Tommy Gavin. One word, alcoholic.
Look, my name's Bob, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Bob. Hi, Bob.
Anyway, I just wanted to say my mother was a controlling goddamn bitch, too, and now she's dead. And my father is 82, and he still pretty much drinks more than I ever used to. And when I was a kid, if I tied the bathroom up for too long, he'd also take the opportunity to remind me that my nose was always going to be bigger than my cock. And I just met my new stepmother, and she's from Korea. And I don't know her that well, but I'm pretty sure she's a raging alcoholic. The point being that I didn't drink because my father called me a pussy or because my mother told me I was going to be no good when I grew up. I drank because I like to drink, okay? I like to drink. I like vodka and I like whiskey, but I pretty much drink anything you put in front of me that had alcohol in it because I love to drink, okay? And the only reason I quit was because I was going to lose my job and probably my kids too, so that's the deal. You know, you guys aren't keeping me from drinking. It's the law. And God didn't make me quit. It was my ex-wife or my soon-to-be ex-wife.
Tommy is very much a functioning alcoholic. We see him battle with alcoholism and substance abuse through the entire show. The alcohol sends him in rages and makes him do heinous things that he can't even remember. It makes his already underlying anger issues into an even bigger problem. And worst of all, it makes him see dead people. As the show goes on, we see more and more ghosts appear, meaning more and more people have died. Alcohol is definitely a trigger that it's in Tommy's head. He even denies seeing dead people and refuses treatment at one point. Tommy was usually a menace of a character. There are multiple situations that had you hoping Tommy didn't find out because he would reliably throw it out of proportion and cause more of a scene. We also know Tommy as the ultimate bullshitter. Tommy gets into bullshit time and time again simply because he can't stop lying. He even has a signature mumble whenever he lies. But when Tommy isn't bullshitting, when he's telling the truth and spitting straight facts, everyone listens. Everyone shuts their mouths and hear what Tommy has to say. We see Tommy struggle with family, his son dying, his new son living with three women, Sheila, dealing with Jimmy, and taking care of Damien. But Tommy and Company will be in its own video. Tommy is also reckless. He's one of the best firefighters these men have ever seen, but at what cost?
Oh, wait a minute. What's that? Oh, no, I see her now. Yeah.
Sweetheart, hold on. We're coming to get you, all
Where's
right?
the ladder?
They were in right behind you.
You know what? Take this, will you?
Tommy, what are you doing?
I wonder if I can make this.
Make this. Tommy, it's 10 feet across. You're not gonna...
Yeah, I think I can do it, man.
Tommy, the ladder's coming up the steps right now.
Yeah, but the ladder's not here yet, is it?
There it is. There it is, Tommy.
Going.
Holy shit!
Tommy, no! Tommy, swing your leg up! Swing your leg up! Tommy, kick your leg up! Kick your leg up!
Hey, how you doing?
We see Tommy multiple times taking risks and doing crazy stunts during fires, also being reflective of his current mental state at that time. Tommy even watches everyone around him get hurt through the show, just like at 9/11. We see that Tommy doesn't know family, love, or parenting, but he knows fire, and he knows booze, or Pete, I should say. The only thing that gets through this thick Irish skull. Finally, after 7 seasons, Tommy starts to see how his issues are affecting his family, and by the end of the show, we think he's gonna be all right. Well, guys, I just want to thank you all for watching. Rescue Me is definitely one of my favorite shows, and in this day and age, it's a hidden gem. Some of the best comedy that would get canceled in an instant these days. Rescue Me was not only ahead of its time, but despite its date, I argue that it still is. Very few shows try to juggle the complexities these men share, and this show attempts to tackle those issues that wouldn't even be touched on in today's film industry. I think one good takeaway from Rescue Me is that we all need to stop being a bunch of pussies. There's stuff in the show that would be boycotted today, and I honestly just get a great laugh out of it. I think we need to shift a little bit backwards in our progressive thought processes. But enough of that. My next Rescue Me video will be going into Tommy Yavin and his family. We'll see characters like Jimmy Keefe, Uncle Teddy, Tommy's dad, along with Janet, Sheila, and company. Once again, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.